2020 and 2021 have been unprecedented years in real estate. What do I think 2022 is going to bring? Let's talk about it. What's up, everybody? Reno of the Reed team with Trotwell Realty here in Kansas City. Now, again, it's no surprise 2020 and 2021 have been ridiculous years in the world of real estate. Now, we kind of look towards the future. A lot of people speculate that there's going to be a huge crash, 2008 levels. A whole lot of different people have different ideas. I want to tell you a little bit about mine. Now, I want to start by saying people have been saying there's going to be a downturn for years. When I was getting my license, I had a teacher who had 30 years experience in the business who said, we probably have a couple more months before we start seeing a downturn. That was October 2018. Needless to say, that didn't happen, right? So people can be wrong, but I don't think it's going to be super ridiculous. I expect to see prices continue to go up, but the appreciation I think is going to slow down. And I think you're going to have a lot more buyers trying to get in on the action. Let's talk about some reasons why. Number one, cost of construction is going down. So during 2021, we had issues with supply chain, right? A lot of materials started going up. Lumber itself caused home prices to raise about $36,000. You can fix those supply chain issues. You don't necessarily have to keep those housing prices as high. I wouldn't expect them to completely drop down if there's demand for it, but kind of see them low a tiny bit. But the increase in home building that's going to bring, the National Association of Home Builders has a builder sentiment where they go out and they ask the public, what are your thoughts on building a home? Now, anything that their rate above 50 indicates a favorable outlook. Despite all the issues, in April and May of 2021, the confidence remained at a constant about 83. So if you can fix those supply chain issues, make them a little bit more cheaper, and pair that with the demand for new houses, I think you're going to have a lot of new houses spreading up as long as there's the space for it. Places like Lee Summit get farther away from the city. I think you're going to see a lot more. Now, I think the biggest potential threat is that you're going to see a lot more sellers, right? Supply and demand, 101. The more supply and with the same demand, the price is going to come down a little bit. Well, with the whole COVID issue, the mortgage forbearance, once you start seeing people having the threat of eviction, threat of foreclosure placed upon them, you're going to see a lot more houses come on the market. So why is that? Well, foreclosure is a legal process, right? If I'm not paying my mortgage, they're going to try to take it back. They can't just, all right, it's ours now. It goes through a process, right? If I owe less than I can sell my house for, if I get a threat, I'm just going to go ahead, turn around, sell it. Too easy. Take the profit. Now, if I owe more than what it's worth, if I owe $100,000 but I can only sell for $80,000, I can try to do what's called a short sale. Now, it's still going to be a little bit of a process, but I can try to work out a deal with the bank so that they just kind of eat the loss. They save the headaches of going through the foreclosure process. I would expect to see some of that kind of towards the later end of 2022, maybe 2023. But when foreclosure kind of starts creeping back into the conversation, I think you're going to see a lot more houses go on the market. And that's going to start not necessarily decreasing the prices, but the appreciation is going to slow quite a bit. Now, you kind of compare that issue with comparatively high mortgage rates. Now, what goes up must come down, or in this case, what goes down must come up. Well, when you keep hitting record low after record low after record low, at some point you're going to hit the bottom. It's not sustainable. So they're going to start coming back up. So over the past couple years, are these rates going to be a little higher? Yeah, they are. But they're still historically extremely good. To give you an idea, they're expecting an average of about 3.8% towards the end of 2022. It's not great. Might be a little bit higher. How does that compare historically, though? Well, the average for the 1990s was 8.12%. Still half that. The average for the 2000s was 6.29. The average for the 2010s was 4.09. So the projection is still that it's going to be better than it was the entirety of last decade. This is still a really good time to buy based on interest rates. Now, they're not, 2% like we were seeing earlier this year or last year, but it's still a very good rate, and it's still very optimal to try to get into the market. So you're going to see previously driven out buyers come back in with a second chance. Over 2020, 2021, we saw homes appreciate at light speed. Buyers often got into bidding wars. It was pretty hectic. So a lot of these people ended up getting priced out. Well, 2022 is set to have some slower appreciation with a little bit of higher interest rates. This is a good time for people who got priced out of buying in 2020 and 2022 to come back in and have that second chance. I would expect to see an increase in buyers despite the increase in these mortgage rates. Now, one thing that people don't talk about a whole lot, because I don't think it's going to be a huge deal in Kansas City, but increased traffic to the area based on affordability and work from home. Well, what do I mean by that? So it's no secret that a lot of people my age, the younger generations, even some of the older generations, love the ability to just sit on the couch, go ahead and get all their work done, right? Well, a lot of these companies that have people in really expensive areas like New York, LA, the Bay Area, right? It's an expensive spot to live at. If they don't care where you work from, you can kind of expect to see people moving in to some cheaper areas. We saw a really good example with this year with Austin, Texas. Exploded, right? So I wouldn't be surprised to see some of the smaller cities, the smaller areas in the country have a little bit more people moving in from these more expensive areas. Now, there's a lot of places that you can go. I don't think Kansas City is going to be necessarily number one on that list, but I do expect a very small nudge to go up, right? Rent growth. Now, 2021 did not have a very favorable outlook for Kansas City in terms of rent. Early in 2021, it came out that Kansas City had the highest growing rent price anywhere in the country. Okay? It's not that great. But do I think that it's going to continue to go up? Yeah. Do I think we're going to be number one? Maybe not number one, but you have apartment complexes popping up all over the place, right? Some newer buildings that you can expect for them to charge a little bit more. But even on, the home renter, the kind of the little guy investor, right? These people who make their money off rent prices. Well, whenever the eviction moratorium came about with COVID, a lot of people, not everybody, a lot of people stopped paying their rent because what are you going to do? You can't kick me out. It's against the law. So I wouldn't expect to see these prices kind of stay where they are. I'd expect a lot of these investors to try to bump the prices a little bit, try to make some of that money back over some time. And then the other thing is I think property values are still going to stay pretty high. Prices rose approximately 17.2% nationwide last year according to data from Realtor.com. At the beginning of 2021, Freddie Mac predicted an increase of about 6.6%. So that's over 10 percentage points different, right? The estimates point to a 4.4% increase, largely due to an expected influx in properties hitting the market. Now, even if they're off the same amount, right? Even if they're off 10 points, the appreciation is going to start slowing down. And so I think you're going to see that same current trajectory like we were talking about, but as more and more buyers, or more and more sellers rather, hit the market, you're going to start seeing them taper off, okay? It might even come down a tiny bit. I wouldn't expect a huge issue out of it. Now, I'm certainly no doomsday preacher. I'm still really optimistic about 2022. But just like the example that I gave about that teacher who said, we only have a couple months, and she was wrong, despite having 30 years experience. I could very well be wrong, right? But before 2019, I don't think anyone really saw the pandemic coming. Things that just kind of happen that you can't predict, they happen, unfortunately. We've seen that in the past couple years. But based on all the data that I'm seeing, all the information that I see, I think 2022 is still going to be a really good year. You or anyone you know is interested in buying or selling a home in the near future, I'd love to help facilitate that for you, okay? While you're here, go ahead and leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to me on my YouTube channel. It really helps a tremendous amount. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.